Okay, so tomorrow is your test for Module 14, and I just wanted to show you that this is the page that you have to work on in order to study for the final. So if you look, it would tell you where all the sections are, and then it would give you a question. Find the common ratio R, and then use R to find the next three terms, and then it tells you all the answer over here, right? So according to this, what is your answer? Well, your answer, common ratio, R is 3. And then what are the next three numbers? Well, you have to keep multiplying. What did you have to multiply to go from 2 to 6? Well, 3. From 6 to 18, 3. So that's why your common ratio is 3. And then if you want to find the next three numbers, what do you have to do? You just gotta keep multiplying by 3. So 54 times 3 is 162. Multiply by 3 again. Multiply by 3 again. So these are the next three terms. Okay, that has to go. So it's pretty simple. The first section, there's going to be one question that looks like that. Oh, there's no section 2, but here you go. Here's section 3. You got to write an equation for the exponential function that includes the points 2, 8 and 3, 16. You can find b by dividing the function value of the second pair by the function value of the first. Okay, so what does that mean? All that means is you're just going to go 16 divided by 8. Okay, and so they did that and you got 2. That means we're going to be multiplying by 2 every single time, okay? And remember the general formula, a, f of x, fancy way of saying y is equal to a times b raised to the x power. And I said that's kind of important. Why was that important, guys? Because, it was kind of like the money that your grandma's going to give you, right? A is the amount of money your grandma starts off with. B is how much she's going to multiply and give it to you every time you pass Miss Choi's test with an A, right? And so in this equation, we know that our common ratio is 2, that we have to multiply by 2 to go to the next number. So what's the only information that we know? We only know that b is 2. So we're going to copy this, copy that, copy the a, and instead of b, I'm going to put 2, and then I copy that. So I'm just basically copying. So then, what do I have to do now? Well, you have to pick any point. You can pick this one or that one. But in this question, what they did was they picked the first one. Okay, so they picked 2, 8. So that means x is 2 and y is 8. So you're just going to set it up. Instead of y, fancy way of saying y is f of x, right? So you put a stays there, and then 2 raised to the power of 2, okay? Instead of x, you plugged in the 2. Then what do you get? You multiply 2 times, you get 4. So 8 is equal to 4a. Divide both sides by 4. Don't forget that step, right? It doesn't show you that. Divide both sides by 4, so this cancels out, and so a is 8 divided by 4 is 2. So then, what is the equation? F of x is equal to 2 times, right? Because that's the very first number. And then 2 raised to the power of x. Because that's how you're supposed to write the equation. Okay, very simple. Now let's go down to 14.5. Describe the transformation of the function g of x, blah, 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 compared to this. Oh, wait, this was today's lesson, wasn't it? And so what did we have? G of x is a fancy way of saying y. And what was 2? That was the money that your grandma started off with. She's going to start off with $2, and every time you pass a test, she's going to multiply it by 3 and give that to you. Oh boy. But then, remember the k? The 5 was the k. Because remember how we talked about the plus k? It brings the whole thing up. Okay? So this graph kind of looks like this because this is positive and that is positive. And basically this whole thing is going to go up by 5. Okay? So then it says describe the transformation. So what does that mean? Compared to 3 raised to the x power. So a has changed from 1 to 2, yeah. Because if there's nothing, I told you this is a 1 times 3 raised to the x power. And so the a has changed from 1 to 2, right? That means it's a vertical stretch by a factor of 2, okay? Because basically this is going to be like this. Vertical stretch means the graph goes further away from the x-axis. And the constant has changed from 0 to 5. What that means is the k has changed from over here is nothing. So it's 0, 0 to 5. This corresponds to a translation of 5 units up. That means this whole graph went up by 5. So What's your final answer? G of x has been stretched by a factor of 2 and translated 5 units up. And that was your answer. So I know you're thinking this is difficult, but obviously it's really not, okay? So how do you know it's not difficult? You know because you're going to go down and solve problems. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and solve all the questions over here, all the way to the bottom, okay? And then what I'm going to do when you come to class, I'm going to go ahead and attach all the answers for you. And on the test, you're only going to have 5 questions. Well, actually, let's say 6 because there's 5 sections. That's pretty much 1 question from each section, okay? So let me go ahead and go over some of the questions for you so you kind of have a general idea what you're supposed to be doing. So there you go. Here's the first question. I'm just going to go ahead and do number 1 for you. This is 2 sections combined together. What does it say? Write a recursive rule and an explicit rule. And then find the next 3 terms. Okay, so what are we multiplying by over here? Oh, 4. And 4 again. Oh, you're going to be like, Miss Choi, you did the easier one. So over here, don't forget, you're dividing, okay? But you don't write divided by. There's always times. So how do you find the ratio? You go 512 divided by 1024. That's what you have to do. And you're going to multiply the same thing over there. If you simplify this, what do you get? Oh, it's only 1/2, okay? So basically you're multiplying by 1/2 every time. Oh man, I said I'm going to only do 1 question for you. And look at me, I'm doing 2 already. No, I'm gonna stop right here with that one. Anyway, so I need to find the recursive rule and an explicit rule. So for the recursive rule, I said you always first start with the first number. F of 1 is what? 2, okay. So I'm going to put f of 1 as 2, and then I'm going to say what? F of n is equal to, and then you always say, you keep multiplying by what? We decided that we're multiplying by 4. You keep multiplying by 4 to the previous number, which is f of n minus 1. And when do you start doing that? Oh, when n is equal or greater than 2, because we start that from the second term. We don't do that with the first one, okay? So that is the recursive rule. What about the explicit rule? Okay, so I'm gonna have to erase this because there's obviously no space here. Okay, so let me just erase. So let's go ahead and find the explicit rule now. I said there's a formula for that. F of n is equal to, and I said first number times the common ratio raised to the n minus 1 power. Remember that? So let's just use it. F of n equals, what's the first number? 2. What's the common ratio? We had to multiply by 4. So it's 4 raised to the n minus 1 power. And we are done. Oh, not really. And then we got to find the next 3 terms. To find the next 3 terms, that's super easy. I'm going to erase it again. This time, all we have to say is, 2, 8, 32. How do I find the next number? Oh, okay, so 1, 2, 3. The 4th number is going to be, so you call that A with a small 4. The 4th number is going to be 32 times 4, which is 128, okay? What about the 5th number? Well, I'm going to multiply 4 to the 128, and that's going to be 512. I hope I did the calculations right. And then what is the 6th number? Well, I'm going to multiply 4 to the 512. So there you go, 8, 4, and 20. And that's it, okay? So these are the next 3 terms, 128, 512, and 2048. So I'm pretty sure you can do the next one. You can see how easy the question is gonna be, right? Again, only 6 questions. Now let's go ahead and scroll down to question number 3 and 4, and let's see what it's saying. It says write an equation for the exponential function. Oh, exponential function, that's the same as the geometric sequence, right? That includes the pair of given points. Find A, B, and the y-intercept, and then graph, blah, blah, blah. And so I told you that on the day of the test, you are definitely welcome to use the Desmos calculator, right? And Miss Choi never lies, okay? So then now the only difficult thing here is you have to find the equation. Because if you don't find the equation, you cannot graph it, right? Okay. So what you see over here is 2 numbers, okay? X, Y, X, Y. But which number is smaller looking at the x values? The -1 is smaller. So basically what that means is we have 0.75, okay, that goes with -1, and then something goes with 0. We don't know what that is. But then for the next number 1, we get 12. Do you understand this part? I hope you do, because -1, comma 0.75 means that's what it is. The first number, okay, the x value is -1 when the x, okay, is like this, okay? When x is -1, y is 0.75. When x is 0, we don't know because they didn't give us any information. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a question mark over there. And then when x is 1, obviously we know the number, that's 12, right? So then what number do we have to multiply to go all the way to 12, right? So all we have to do is always remember back divided by front. So if you go 12 divided by 0.75, you'll find out that the answer is 16, okay? So then you are basically multiplying by 16 every single time, okay? To go over to the next number, okay? But guess what? How many times do we have to go here? We have to go 2 times. So what number times what number equals 16? What circle times circle equals 16? What is this? What is circle? Yes, 4. 4 times 4 is 16, right? So what is the rate of change? Your rate of change or your common ratio is 4. I hope you understood that part because that's once you get that part, everything is so easy, okay? So now let's go to the equation. It looks like this. A times b raised to the x power. And what we just did when we got the 4, that was b. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug it in, but I could select any point here, and I'm going to plug it into the x and the y. I'm going to use this one because it's just prettier and easier. So instead of x, I plug in 1. Instead of f of x, I plug in 12. Instead of b, I plug in 4 because I found out that you have to multiply by 4 every single time. Are we ready? 12 equals a times b is 4. In parentheses, raised to the power of 1. If you multiply 4 one time, it's just 4, right? So what do you have? 12 is equal to 4a. Divide both sides by 4 because we want to find out what a is equal to. So now we have a is equal to 3. Oh, wow. Are you kidding me? So now we know what a is. A is 3 and b is 4. So now we're done with the equation, aren't we? Okay, so I'm just going to write this down. F of x equals 3 times 4 raised to the x power, okay? And so that is the equation for question number 3. Once we have the equation, now all we have to do is find a, b, and the y-intercept. So what did I say? A is 3, b is 4, because this is a and this is b, right? And what is the y-intercept? Oh, are you kidding me? The y-intercept is always a when there's no plus k, right? So that would be 0, 3, okay? That's where the graph is going to be touching the y line. And then we have to graph this, okay? So when we graph it, you are welcome to go into Desmos, okay? So I'm gonna go into Desmos right now, but I can't because my screen is frozen because I'm on writing mode. So let me just tell you that based on the equation, it's going to look like this. This is a 5, and let's say like that's a 3 right there. Okay, and then it's going to look something like that. Okay, and so once you draw your graph, and so how are you gonna do that, guys? I told you you gotta go ahead and take a snapshot, and then you have to insert the graph. Okay, so make sure you practice doing that in class so you know how to do that. And then once you put in the graph, because we did that, find a, b, the y-intercept, and then we graphed it. Now we got to describe the end behavior. So what did I say? You always start off with, because there's 2 situations to describe the end behavior. You go, when x goes into infinity, then y goes to what? And then when x goes into negative infinity, then y goes to what? Okay, so remember we talked about this. X going to infinity means you're just going to the right. The graph keeps going to the right. So then what happens? On the x line, as we go to the right, on the y line, what happens if we follow the graph? We're going up and up and up and up, right? So y is going through infinity as well. Okay, and x is going to negative infinity means on the x line we're going backwards to the left this way. Okay, so we're starting from here and then we keep going down. But look, it's not like the graph is going down and down and down like this forever. It's like slowing down. Towards what point? Yeah, towards 0. Okay, and so this is all you have to do. And some of you are asking me, Miss Choi, what's infinity? Infinity means you keep going up and up and up, or right and right and right and right. But you know, we're not in elementary school, so we don't say we go up and up and up and up and right and right and right and right forever. We say we go to infinity. And then when we talk about negative infinity, that means we go down and down and down and down, or to the left and left and left and left. Get it? So I just want to make sure that you understand this part. All right? So just to answer one question, wow, there are so many things you gotta do, right? So I want you to work on question number 4 yourself. Hopefully you get it. Now, you don't have to worry about number 6, okay? But you do have to worry about number 5. It says describe the transformation. Oh, this was the lesson we did today, right? So this is A. That's the initial amount of money that grandma has. And she's going to multiply it 5 times every time you get an A in Miss Choi's class. And X tells you how many times you got that A in Miss Choi's class. The -2 is the K. And basically what that means is whatever the graph looks like, it seems to me like it's going to look like that. The whole graph is going to go down by how many? 2. Okay, so what are you going to say over here? And you have to compare to this graph. So the rate of change is the same, 5. Grandma decided to go ahead and multiply the money by 5 times every single time you pass the test with an A, no matter what. But over here she started with $1 because there's nothing. That means it's 1 times 5 raised to the x power. But over here she's starting with 1/4. So you know what, I actually want this one, not the other one. But oh well. But on top of that, she's going to go ahead and subtract $2. That's kind of sad. She really doesn't want you to get any money, right? So how would I answer this? Oh, okay. So compared to this, okay. G of x is a vertical stretch, stretch, is a vertical stretch of f of x by what? This is 1 and this is 0.25. So you have to multiply 0.25 to 1 to get that, right? By 0.25, okay? And the translation, that means it goes down. And the translation down by 2. That means the graph goes down by 2. And that's all you have to say. All it's saying is, well, the graph looks like this, but it's a vertical stretch, right? Well, actually, it's kind of like a compression. It's going to go like this, and then the whole thing goes down. So this is where the graph is, okay? By 2. And that is all it's saying. It's not that difficult, right? So make sure you practice that. Now, assessment readiness, I'm not going to go over this. Just know that you do not have to do number 2. Okay, no, you don't have to do number 2. And then you don't have to worry about number 3 either. Okay? But number 4, I want you to work on this. This is really easy. There's a laser beam and the output is 6 milliwatts. What that means is you start with 6 milliwatts, kind of like grandma starting with $6, right? So the laser beam loses 2% of its power every time it reflects off a mirror. So what is 2%? If you lose 2% out of 100%, isn't that 98%? Yeah, so we're going to say 0.98 because 0.98 means 90%. And the power is what? P of n. So we're going to say P of n is another just fancy way of saying y is an exponential function of the number of reflections in the form of. Okay, so then you just put n over here and you have to write the equation, which is right here, and then it says explain how you determine the values of a and b. Okay, so now this is the part where you have to actually write stuff, right? So then I could say, you know what, I want to first scroll down because I want some more space. And so I said the equation is P of n is equal to 6 times 0.98 raised to the power of n, right? And I said I chose A to be 6 because that is what? That is the initial amount or the beginning amount. Initial amount of, what is this? That's the initial amount of power that the laser beam has. It's kind of like 6 is kind of like $6 that your grandma starts off with, right? Then I chose 0.98 as B because what? Then I chose 0.98 as B because it loses its power by 2%, and that is 0.02. If you subtract from 100%, that is 98%, which means it is 0.98. Wow, I'm obviously not an English teacher, so it's like my sentences go on and on and on, okay? Anyway, so that's why I chose a 6 because that's the beginning amount of power that the laser beam has. Then I chose 0.98 because every time it shoots a beam, it loses its power by 2%. And actually, you don't even have to put that, right? By 2%. So if you subtract from 100%, that's 98%, which means it is 0.98. So basically, every time you shoot the beam one time, then you have only 0.98 times 6, and that's how much power you have. But then you shoot one more time, and then you do that. So what I just said, you can go ahead and explain it some more. So you can see that this question is definitely going to be there, and this is most like an essay question, right? So that's crazy. But if you're lost with this kind of question, go back and find these questions. If you go back into all your homework questions, you'll see something similar to that. That is the section that you have to study. Obviously, this question is going to be worth the most points, okay? So now I am done for today. Please go ahead and ask me for help if you need it. And good luck on your test on Friday. And no worries because I want you to be successful and I will help you do that. Goodbye.
Mommy.